This free hypnosis lesson is part of a series of 6. If you'd like to download all 6 hypnosis lessons completely free of charge, please go to freehypnosislessons.com.
Hi there and welcome to lesson number 5. In this lesson we're going to be covering what you actually do with the trance itself, and you basically have 3 options. You can use the trance for therapy, you can use it for entertainment, or you could use it to gather some information. So we're going to kick off with the therapy option. Now what I'm going to give you here is a basic to get you started. If you want to get more involved in hypnotherapy, then do go on and continue your studies. And also it's very, very important to remember that whatever problem you're dealing with, you need to make sure that your client does seek conventional medical advice before you do anything. Now basic therapy is very, very simple, but lots of hypnotists get it completely wrong. So I want to give you some simple rules to follow to make sure you're getting your therapy right from the beginning. So rule number 1, you should make sure that your suggestions are positive. When your suggestions are positive, the person that you're hypnotising is moving towards their goal, being focused on their goal, so they get more of what they're focused on, rather than being focused on the past and trying to move away from it. This is like driving forward but looking in the rear view mirror. If you do this, you're going to crash. You need to be focused on where you're going. So to give you an example, the statement, "you will stop smoking," is negative. Anything with the words no, not, won't, don't, or stop, or anything like that is negative, and you need to turn that round and make it a positive. So "you will stop smoking" becomes "you are a healthy, happy and proud non-smoker." Rule number 2, you should keep all of your suggestions in the present tense, even when you're talking about the future. With the example we've just given, it's very easy to say you are a healthy and happy non-smoker. But when we're dealing with something that takes time to see results, like losing weight for instance, you need to bend your English a little bit so that you can use the present tense. This really helps to bring things back to now so that the subconscious mind can really latch onto them. If you put them in the future, then they'll tend to always be in the future, and it'll always be something that you're striving towards rather than something that you're achieving. So you could say, in 3 months from now, you are your perfect size and shape, and you feel fantastic about yourself. By just changing the way you word things a little like that, by saying you are rather than you will be, it brings it all back to now so that the subconscious mind can really grab hold of it. Rule number 3, this is the ecology check. What you need to do here is to take your client into the future, imagining that they've already had those changes that you're working on and they've been in place for many years. Get them to imagine life in 5, 10, 15 or even 20 years from now. See how the change has affected them, how it's affected their loved ones, their work, their home environment, and if necessary, if problems arise, rethink the therapy or adjust that situation. You'll often find that people have a secondary gain from their problems, such as eating chocolate for comfort, or maybe even smoking to help relaxation. If you're going to remove a bad habit, and that bad habit was supplying a secondary gain, you need to put a good habit in its place that's going to give them that gain, so that they don't fall back into old patterns. For example, with the smoking, if they get relaxation from smoking, then you need to put something in place that gives them relaxation. A great thing to put in place in this case is a deep breathing exercise, and put that in as a good habit so they've got something that supplies that gain that smoking was providing. That's our 3 golden rules covered, and as long as you stick to these 3 rules, you should be able to create therapy for any situation. So what else can we use hypnosis for? Well, obviously we can use hypnosis for entertainment, and you can start a career as a stage hypnotist. It's very, very profitable, and you can become very, very famous. Now as a stage hypnotist, when you do a show, you're going to be using various types of routines, and the way you structure your show enables you to take your subjects, your volunteers, much, much deeper into trance, and you can do this very, very smoothly while still entertaining the audience. So first of all, you'll do an induction and a deepener, just as we've discussed in previous lessons, and then you'll go into your routines. To begin, you should stick with routines that include all of the volunteers. This gives you a fantastic opportunity to pick out which ones are going to be the best for future routines. Also, you should use a routine that allows them to keep their eyes closed. So if any of your volunteers aren't in a very deep trance yet, they'll be able to do this comfortably. And going through these initial routines in a group will really take them much, much deeper into trance anyway. A great couple of routines to get you started is perhaps a mock Kentucky Derby or the Grand National, or maybe even playing some music and getting all the individual volunteers to imagine they're playing instruments. To move your show along, you're going to be using some post-hypnotic suggestions at this point, and this is where you wake up a volunteer, they carry out your suggestion, and then you put them back into trance. In order for this to work, you need to have the suggestion that they're going to go back into trance quickly, so you don't have to re-hypnotise them. A post-hypnotic suggestion is a suggestion that's carried out after you have woken someone from the trance state, and the most common post-hypnotic suggestion you're ever going to use is one that enables you to get a person back into trance with the click of your fingers, and it goes like this. Before you wake up the person, you give them the suggestion that for the rest of the evening or for the rest of the show, whenever you click your fingers and say the word sleep, they will instantly go back into a deep, deep state of hypnosis. Now once you've given the suggestion, make sure that you get confirmation that they've understood it. So it goes like this. For the rest of this evening, whenever I click my fingers and say the word sleep, you will instantly go back into trance. If you understand, nod your head. Now wait for the volunteers to all nod their heads to confirm they've understood this. Then, after you've woken them from the trance state, you can simply click your fingers, say the word sleep, and they go back into trance. When you're doing this, it works much better if you click the fingers near that person's face, because that creates a little bit of a shock, and that in itself encourages the trance state. It also helps is when you give the command to sleep, you command it rather than simply asking or requesting it. So, when they're awake, you've done the routine, you go up to near their face, you'll click and you'll say sleep. And as you do that, that'll encourage them to go back into trance. Now if that's affected you at all, eyes open wide awake and back listening to the lesson, because people are affected by just simple suggestions like that just through association. So bring yourself right back to fully awakened consciousness to carry on with this lesson. So that's how a post-hypnotic suggestion works. A fantastic post-hypnotic suggestion that you can use once that one's been installed is to tell the volunteer that you're going to give them a pair of experimental glasses. And when they try on these glasses, they'll be able to see all the members of the audience completely naked. Wake them up, have a little bit of chat with them and ask them if they're hypnotised, and they'll probably say no, or in some cases they'll say they're not sure. And then tell them that you've got some very, very special experimental glasses, and then pass those over. As a visual aid to the show, it really helps if you use some great big joke glasses. As you give them the glasses, tell them you think they'll be surprised by the effect that they have, and get them to try them on. When they try the glasses on, they'll imagine the audience completely naked. The response that you get from this is very varied depending on the person you're dealing with, but it's always extremely entertaining for the audience. So do have a play around with a few ideas like that, but do remember to keep your routine safe. It's not only your volunteers that are affected by your suggestions, but it's also their loved ones as well. You might have seen hypnotists in the past do routines where they get different volunteers to fall in love with each other, or even to get off with each other. Bear in mind that the people that volunteered perhaps have got boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands or wives out there in the audience, and they're not going to be too happy about those kind of suggestions. At the end of your show, do remember to thank your volunteers and return them to their fully normal waking state of consciousness. Remove all of the suggestions that you've given them, and it's a great idea to stick around in the venue afterwards, at least for an hour. This way you can answer any questions, deal with any problems if they arise. They very rarely do, but you do need to be there just in case. And it also gives you a fantastic opportunity to advertise your hypnotherapy business if you have one. Now moving on to the third option for hypnosis, and this is using hypnosis for information. This is the weird and fascinating side of hypnosis, and particularly we're going to be focusing on regression. Now it doesn't matter what your religious or your spiritual beliefs are, when you regress a client it is completely fascinating. There are many suggestions as to what happens when we regress somebody. Perhaps the favourite is that that person is accessing a previous life. That's what I believe, but it might not be that. It could be that person is accessing a memory that they've got, perhaps from a book that they've read or a film that they saw as a child, maybe even just from a photograph that they saw. Subconsciously that information's been stored and they're simply accessing that, but they don't know where it's coming from. Maybe that person is tuning into some kind of global consciousness, or maybe some kind of record storehouse of all information. Perhaps that person is tuning into another person's experience, another person's past life, another person's present life. Whatever it is, the information that they bring back can be completely fascinating. Now there are many ways that you can regress a client, but we're going to run through a basic script. In order to regress a client, simply hypnotise them, use the trance deepener, just as you've done in the previous lessons, and then have them imagine that they're in a room filled with books. Each of these books contains lots and lots of photographs, and each of these photographs is of that person. Somewhere in this room is a book that contains photographs of this person's current life. On the first page of this book will be a photograph of themselves today. On the second page will be themselves 1 year ago. On the third page it will be 2 years ago, and on and on and on. If they turn each page of the book, each photograph will be 1 year older, so they'll appear 1 year younger. Have them pick out this book, and in the centre of the room is a table and a chair. Get them to sit down at the table, open this book on the first page and have a look at that photograph of themselves. When they're ready, get them to turn over and look at the photograph that's a year older, so they'll appear a year younger. Get them to go through the pages of the book like this, seeing themselves a year younger with each page that they turn, and have them stop on any page they desire. Once they've chosen a page and they've got a photograph in front of them, just do a little bit of a check to make sure it's a happy memory, and then you can step into this photograph. To step into the memory, simply imagine that the photograph on the page is growing larger and larger and larger. Then imagine that it's becoming three-dimensional, and get them to step right into that. Have them have a good look around inside that environment, and then when they're ready, get them to step right inside that image of the younger them. Get them to put themselves on as though they're putting on a boiler suit, so they're pushing their hands inside their younger hands, just like wearing a pair of gloves. Get them to see through those younger eyes, hear through those younger ears, and experience and know what that younger person knew. If they want to use this as a form of therapy, they can take the knowledge and wisdom that they've gathered now in their later life and put it back in that child to help them to overcome something that happened in the past. However, if you're just using this to gather information, then simply jump back into that experience, and then you can ask them a series of questions. Once you're ready to return back to the present, get them to imagine stepping back out of that person, and then have them thank the person for the experience. Have them step back out of the photograph, imagine the photograph getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and sit back into the chair looking back at the book. Make sure you tell them that they're coming back to the present year and they're coming back to their present age, and get them to confirm they've done this, and then close the book, return it to its place, and then talk them back out of trance. If you want to delve into a previous life, then simply have them select a book from around the room that represents that life. Get them to look through the pages and then step into whichever image feels most appropriate. Until you become more experienced, it's a good idea to only have your clients step into positive memories. In the next lesson, you'll learn how to deal with abreactions, which is something that can happen when you're dealing with regression, whether it's regression in this life or regression to a former life. And this is simply a release of emotions, and you're going to need to be able to talk your client through this experience because it can be quite traumatic. In the next lesson, we'll also be dealing with some other problems that you can come up against, as well as dealing with the thing that we should have done in this lesson, but this one's got a bit too long, so we're going to have to push it out to the next one, and that's how to best wake up your client. So I'm going to leave you with what you've learned today. Go through it, listen to it over and over, and make sure that you get plenty of time to practice. I'll see you in your next lesson. You take care. Bye bye.